my channel. Welcome back to another video. I'm Jessie E, and you're watching. Today I have a video that was highly requested. I'm very excited about it, and that is my top 10 worst reads of 2019. If you are used to following along on my channel, you'll know that every month I make a video titled Spilling Positivity, where I partner with SipsBy, a brilliant tea subscription company, and for every tea that I unbox, I shout out a booktuber that I absolutely adore. This is probably going to be the last month you'll ever see a SipsBy box on my channel because they are totally going to cancel me and terminate our partnership after this video. Since I'm spilling a lot of scalding tea in this video, I thought it would be fun to unbox my SipsBy in this video. So I'm going to be unboxing, and then I'm going to be picking a tea to make, and I will sit down and drink that tea as I rant about these 10 books. And of course, because I just have horrible luck with hyped books, all of them except for maybe one are all hyped books. So there's gonna be a lot of faves on this list.
I'm sorry.
You know I'm going to give you my honest opinions about books no matter what. It could be my mama's favorite book, and if I had issues with it, I'ma tell her.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
Let's see what's in this box. This is my January Sips box. There's a nice spoiler card, as always, and the spoiler card is nice because it tells you, like, what temperature to steep the teas at and for how long and such. So the first tea that I see is this organic chamomile lavender. These are really fragrant. It smells so good. I absolutely love lavender tea. So that is a very strong contender. What else is in here? Okay, so we have our muslin cloth bags. These are what you pour loose leaf teas into in order to steep them safely in your cup. The next tea that I see, ooh, this is by Tea Kitten. They sent me a lime tea by Tea Kitten earlier this year, and I really, really loved it. This one is Pink Citrus Magic. It's a low caffeine green tea. I really want to try this right now. There's two more teas left. This one is a matcha latte. It's a matcha green tea with spices. Oh, I wonder if this has a lot of caffeine because I can drink this in the mornings when I'm groggy and on the go. Does it have caffeine? Okay, so it's got medium caffeine, which is going to be really, really nice. And the last tea in this box, oh, this is from David's Tea. David's Tea made that s'mores tea that I was fucking obsessed with a couple months ago. I finished that package so quickly, so I'm really excited for this. This is called Candy Cane, wow. Candy Cane Crush, Minty Holiday Classic. Yes, black tea, white chocolate, vanilla, peppermint candy, peppermint oil, snowflake candies. Okay, all of this sounds amazing. I think I'm gonna save this for one of my reading vlogs because it sounds very, very cozy. This video is going to be very emotional. There's gonna be a lot of feelings that are going to get shared. I think I'm going to go with the chamomile tea just to help me stay calm.
Because y'all know once I get going, it's on my Donkey Kong.
Okay, I'm gonna be right back after I make my tea. Instagram, you'll know that I've been absolutely in love with my new Frida Kahlo mug, and it's fitting because Also, huge shout out to Alexia for the bow tie that I'm wearing. This is a T-Rex bow tie. I just think it's so adorable. And in case you're wondering why I drink my tea through a straw, it's because tea stains your teeth more than coffee does. So I drink my tea through a reusable metal straw in order to minimize the staining to my teeth. Oh my god, I am stalling because I know this video is gonna piss a lot of people off. So we might as well just get into it
so I can lose all my subscribers.
Number 10 on this list of books that wasted my time is none other than The Wedding Date by Jasmine Gilroy. This was my first read of 2019, and I couldn't have been more excited about it because people on Bookstagram were just raving about this adorable love story between a black female lawyer and a white male doctor. It was described as really cute and just enjoyable and so contemporary, and I was really, really excited to see a black girl fall in love. And also the premise of the book I found to be absolutely intriguing and hilarious. It's about these two business professionals who get trapped in an elevator together, and the doctor, whose name is Drew, decides to ask Alexa, the lawyer, if she would accompany him to a wedding. And so through the goodness of her heart and a lack of a social calendar, Alexa says yes, and it's about the wedding itself, the events leading up to it and after it, and about the relationship that buds between the two of them. I had to start my reading year on this note. I was trying so hard to complete it by December 31st, but I just couldn't make it work because I had so much to do. I had a feeling.
I had a feeling.
I had a feeling it was gonna be a big disappointment, and I was right. The miscommunication trope runs rampant with this one. I'm able to suspend my belief for a lot of stories, but I just didn't believe that
A fucking lawyer.
somebody who argues and communicates for a living could allow a miscommunication to run so wild between her and the person that she was dating. And I said this earlier on in the year, and somebody commented and said, like, yeah, you'd be surprised about how often miscommunication happens between adults. And that is 100% true. So my issue with the miscommunication trope in this story could just be my own personal problem, because it is so opposite to who I am. If I have an issue with you, I will tell you immediately. I will tell you up front, and then we will address the issue and I will move on with my life. I absolutely do not dwell on miscommunications or issues that have arisen between me and a friend. As long as the issue gets addressed, I move on. And it's the same way in my partnerships. Like, if my partner does something that I'm uncomfortable with, I will tell them immediately and it will get addressed, and then we will move on. And so I just really didn't enjoy that the miscommunication trope was used in place of an actual potential conflict. The story itself read as incredibly juvenile. I also didn't like that Drew and Alexa start having some very, very rough sex, and they never once discussed how they were going to have sex safely. They didn't discuss consent. Drew didn't ask Alexa if she was comfortable with him doing some of the things that he was doing, and vice versa. And I just believe that we need to see safe sex normalized a lot more in our books. And I'm not gonna lie, Drew really got on my nerves. I didn't like him. I thought that he was very ignorant, and his jealousy was depicted as something that was romantic and attractive. I didn't think it was cute at all. You and your jealousy can head right out the door. There is no level of cute a person can be for me to put up with jealousy. I ended up giving The Wedding Date 2.5 stars. The next book is The Everlasting Rose by Johnyelle Clayton. This is the sequel to The Bells, the highly anticipated sequel to The Bells that I was so excited about. If you've been keeping up with my favorites videos, you'll see that The Bells made it onto my top YA books of 2019.
Unfortunately, this did not.
In case you don't know, The Bells is a New Orleans-inspired world in which people are born gray except for the bells. Now, if you are a bell, you have the ability to use arcana in order to manipulate the world around you. You can give people skin color. You can make them taller. You can give them any amount of features or customization as long as they have the money to pay. And our main character, Camille, wants nothing more than to be the top belle in the palace. Her name is Camellia, but she also goes by Camille. Book 1 is about her finding out that palace life is not all that it seems. There's something very nefarious going on and happening to the bells. And book 2 is basically her on the run, just trying to survive. Like its predecessor, there were such gorgeous descriptions in this book, and that is what really kept me going. I absolutely love Johnyelle Clayton's writing. I think that she is a wildly talented wordsmith, and her craft truly shows in this book. The character development is really excellent too. In book 1, you see how curious and fascinated Camellia is with the palace, with everything that's going on in her environment. And in this book, you see all of her curiosity turn to anger because of the things that have happened to her. And so I really liked that transition. A big theme in both of these books is about angry girls and how valid it is to be an angry girl and the reasons that girls have to be angry in society. It also shows that you don't have to be a hyper-masculine girl in order to be a freaking badass. Many YA fantasies have a big issue with depicting only masculine, tomboyish girls as the strong ones. There's a lot of girl hate in YA fantasy. There's a lot of femphobia in YA fantasy. And so one of my favorite things about this book is that it stands in complete contrast to a lot of those toxic attitudes. I absolutely loved the theme in this book of how it takes not just one or two of us to stand up to oppression, but all of us have to make a stand in order to change. We can't expect one person or even two to take the entire burden of resisting on their shoulders. We all have to stand up and say no. But I was so frustrated with Camille in this book. I felt that Camille was putting herself in danger and making incredibly unwise decisions just for the sake of creating drama and action. And I felt like there were better ways to have written drama and action and danger into the story without the main character losing all of her foresight. She was basically just challenging head on into very ill-advised situations, and I just felt it wasn't at all in line with the wonderful character that we got to meet in book one. The worst part about it is that I can't even discuss the things that she did because they're all huge spoilers. And then there's a big part of the book where she starts to experiment with magic in a way that's never been experimented with before, and I found it kind of hard to believe that no belle before in the history of belledom has ever tried to experiment with their powers. Okay.
Sure, Jan.
I gave it 2.5 stars, and it upset me more than it should have because I was just so excited for the sequel. The bells felt as if I were climbing a mountain and I got to the top ready to cheer about my incredible victory, and the sequel was me just getting kicked off the fucking mountain and plummeting to my death. Book number 3 is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Now this is on the list because it was so heavily hyped and I went into it wildly excited about it, and it was just meh for me. It wasn't bad per se, but for a book that was 700 pages, I should have left it feeling a little bit more satisfied than I did. You know what I'm saying? Priory of the Orange Tree is this really complex YA fantasy that has dragons. And I feel like that's pretty much all the synopsis we need. It's got dragons, it's got dragon riders, it has palace life, and we get to follow a myriad of characters as they try to navigate assassinations and betrayal, falling in love, and each of them have to band together in order to defeat this ultimate ancient evil. Now, I absolutely friggin' loved the normalization of queerness in this story. It was just so gay. I loved Sabran, who was the queen. She was my favorite. I thought that Sabran was so badass, so misunderstood, but complex. I thought that she was full of herself and stubborn and pig-headish, but also cared so deeply about her people and about doing what she believed was right. The fight scenes in this book were freaking awesome, okay? I really enjoyed the fight scenes. I was very invested and entertained by them, and I think that the strongest point of this book by far is the world building. The world building is so intricate and so lush. It's lavish. It definitely felt like a world that you could fall into once you opened the book, and I see so clearly why so many people loved Priory of the Orange Tree. My problem with it was that those things in and of themselves were not enough for me to hype and endorse this book. Some of the sentences and descriptions were just very clumsy. It felt like the author was trying a little bit too hard to use unconventional language, and then there were just teleporting. Characters would be in one spot, and if you look at the map, they would have to cover hundreds of miles, and then in the blink of an eye, they would be at their destination. And I was just like, when did Nightcrawler pop into this book to help y'all out? Where has Kurt been? Apparently this book is set in the Marvel Universe, and when Kurt disappears in the comics, he reappears in Priory of the Orange Tree in order to act as a chauffeur to help the characters get around. It was ludicrous. And the convenience issues, oh my god, that was that was my biggest issue with the book, was the convenient writing. Okay, there would be an impossible situation that a character would be put in, and you would be asking yourself as the reader, oh my goodness, how ever is this character going to escape their current plight? And then all of a sudden, something would appear to save them from the situation. And that something was completely new to the story and had never been built up or established. I will give you an example. One of the characters, I don't remember who it was, one of the characters is trapped, I think, at the top of a mountain. And all of a sudden, a magical bird appears and gives them a ride to safety. Now, this species of bird, maybe it's not even a bird, I don't remember what it was. This species of bird had not been mentioned at all in the book. Its existence hadn't been established. So it was literally like the writer was writing the story, and she was like, oh, how is the character going to survive? I know, magical flying bird. and she created it on the spot. Next, we have The Tiger at Midnight by Swati Teerdhala. I actually don't know if this is considered a hyped read or not, but I definitely saw it going around. I was really, really excited about it. Non-Western centric fantasies are definitely my jam, and I was freaking so thrilled from the synopsis alone. It's about two characters, Esha and Kunal. Esha is this legendary teenage badass assassin named the Viper, and she's decided she's going to sneak into the palace and murder this general that has been oppressing people and causing issues for a long time. There is Kunal, who is the nephew to the general. He's been raised in the palace. He is a soldier who follows orders without question and always does what he's told. This book is described as a cat and mouse game between Esha and Kunal, as Kunal is tasked with unmasking and killing the Viper, but not if the Viper kills him first. The strongest part of the book for me was the lore and the culture. So beautiful. And that's what kept me going throughout the story. But the cat and mouse game got old real quick. It was as if the author decided that every 50 pages, Esha would capture Kunal. There would be a lot of strained sexual tension. Kunal would escape, Esha would go hunting after him, the two of them would fall into some sort of trap and then have to rely on each other to get out of the trap, and then they would go their separate ways, only to repeat it all in the next 50 pages. First, there was a lot of telling instead of showing, which I might have been able to look past if the characters weren't so cookie cutter. You have the outlaw assassin and you have the law-abiding soldier. These are characters that have been done 1,000 times before, and that itself isn't a problem, but unfortunately they followed the mold of their characters so specifically without ever wavering. And can I just say, I never once believed that Esha was the Viper. We are expected to believe that Esha is the world's most lethal assassin, despite the fact that it was never really explained how she got to be that way. On Goodreads, I gave it 3 stars, but honestly, I think it deserves a 2. Book number 5 is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This is number 5 on my list because I read it for Mythathon, the mythology-centric readathon that I hosted. I was on Team Earth because I am an Earth sign, and Team Earth was hosted by Brittany from Brittany the Bibliophile, who I cast as the reincarnation of the goddess Aphrodite. Brittany picked this book because it fit really, really well with the prompts, and I personally hold Brittany responsible for making me fucking read this. Just kidding, Brittany, you know I love you.
I love you a little less now, but I still love you.
This is a dark YA Little Mermaid retelling where Princess Lyra collects the hearts of men. She lives under the sea. She is a siren who loves to lure men to their deaths with her sweet song. However, because her mother, the evil sea queen, puts a lot of pressure on her, Lyra can't have just any man. She only takes the heart of princes. Enter Prince Elion, who is a prince that loves to be on the water. He spends his days with his ragtag crew on a ship going out and hunting sirens because, you know, sirens kill a lot of people and it upsets him. So of course this is an enemies to lovers YA fantasy about these two unlikely characters intersecting and falling in love. This tea is not doing its job. I'm still wound up. God, I wish this was tequila. Oh my God, here we go. I really, really liked the writing. I thought the writing was pretty and it was lyrical, and it is what really, really drove the story. I really like books that are set underwater. I am so fascinated by the sea because I am terrified of the ocean. I have a deep fear of being in a body of water when my feet don't touch the ground.
That bothers me.
That's an issue for me. And this fear is because I believe that there are giant sea creatures in the ocean and there's nothing you can do to convince me otherwise. As large as the ocean is, it's improbable that there are not creatures who have adapted to survive its depths at the bottom. It's improbable. That being said, this book was just so... The villain. Let's first start by talking about the villain. I kind of went on a rant in one of my videos. I think it was the wrap up where I discussed this book that I went on this rant, but I essentially was ranting about how YA fantasy needs better villains. A lot of the villains in YA fantasies are just evil for the sake of being evil. They have little to no backstory, little to no characterization, and their only motivation is to cause chaos for the main characters. It's just not exciting to read, it's not interesting, and I need my villains to have the same level of characterization as the main characters, as the protagonists. On top of that, this is a historical YA fantasy. This is prior to advancements in science and technology, and there are lines that just don't make any sense. One of the characters on the ship on Prince Elion's crew once says, "Ever since we pulled down to skeleton crew, there's been too much testosterone on board." There will be oddly modern language woven throughout the book that just kept bringing me out of the world that had been established. And I just love the cover. There's something about a dark blue and orange cover that really pops for me. I absolutely love books that have serpent imagery on the covers. Unfortunately, every single book that I read this year that had serpent imagery on it was a huge disappointment. And don't even get me started on the romance between Prince Elion and Princess Lyra. First of all, I hated Elion, and I think that Princess Lyra should have killed him long ago. I didn't buy into their romance at all. It started out so slow and measured, and then it snowballed, and I think I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It could easily be knocked down to a 2. Now we are down to our bottom 3 books. Number 4. It's number 4. And this is where it gets really gritty. They're all very well respected. It's books that people love so much. And I'm not one of those people. I attended BookCon in 2019, and yes, I will be at BookCon again in 2020. And this book was being very, very hyped at BookCon. People were damn near killing each other to get ARCs of it. This is a very beloved author's second book, but it is in an entirely new genre, and I love when authors branch out of their genres. So I was really, really excited to give it a try, especially because the synopsis sounds amazing. It sounds like everything I absolutely want in a book, and that book is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. The synopsis is the best part of this book, okay? Do you see how thick this is? Do you see? This book is 700 pages long. Why? 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 Tell me why. This book follows Kate and her son. He's like 12, 13. How old is this child? Whatever, we're gonna say that he's 12. This book follows Kate and her 12-year-old son named Reese.
Wait, that's not his name. Oh my god, let me try this again.
My brain is trying to keep me from talking about this book. This book follows Kate and her 12-year-old son named Christopher. Kate's latest boyfriend has become abusive, and he's taken her son and decided to flee in order to protect both of their lives. So they moved to this very remote town in Pennsylvania in the middle of the woods. Once in the woods, Christopher wanders off and he disappears for, I believe, 3 days. And after his 3-day disappearance, he comes back home with an imaginary friend. I've said it before and I will
Say it again. My kid not allowed to have no damn imaginary friend.
My child is not allowed to talk to anything that I can't see. I will replace you with a puppy so quick.
And that's why I don't have kids.
The suspense, the thrill, the horror in this book is juicy and delicious. I absolutely enjoyed all of those elements. That was what I read the book for, and that is the only reason why I gave the book as high of a rating as I ended up giving it. Now, if you take those elements away, if you take away my sick love for being uncomfortable and for being freaked out and creeped out, then you realize that this book is just a big pile of
What the fuck?
It ends up taking a turn. I'm not gonna tell you what kind of turn because I feel like it would be a spoiler. But if you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. And it was so ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. The turn that this book took. It was like Stephen Chbosky got to page 375. And he was like, you know what? I'm gonna write a completely different fucking story. And that's exactly what he did. The turn that this book takes is about a topic that I don't enjoy reading about. And in fact is a bit of a turn off in books. And to be perfectly honest, part of the reason that people enjoyed this book as much as they did is because Stephen Chbosky wrote it. He also wrote The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I know in my heart of hearts that if his name was not on this book, y'all all would be like, what the hell happened at the end?
Pun intended.
My other critique of the book is that you can definitely tell that Kate's character was written by a man. 1000% of her character development is a result of the men who have abused her. She does grow in this book, she does develop, but only because of the ways that men have made her suffer. She doesn't get any sort of development or growth that doesn't involve a man. There's literally a scene where a man punches her in the face and she like spits out a wad of blood and goes, I've learned to take a punch long ago, and now I can throw one. And that was supposed to be the height of her character development. Also the men around her are so sexist, they sexualize her so much that it just kind of felt, I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but the way that women were treated in this story just, it didn't sit well with me. I ended up giving Imaginary Friend 2.75 stars just because I loved the relationship between Kate and Christopher, and I absolutely loved the horror. But why? Oh my god, and I almost forgot. I buddy read this with Julia Sapphire, and I almost forgot to mention. Julia, do you remember the plastic bag? The plastic bag. There's a character in this book who is a plastic bag. And I don't mean that like the plastic bag is a metaphor, and I don't mean that the plastic bag is imaginary. It's a real character inside of a plastic bag for
months after reading this book, probably about 2 months after reading this book, I could not look at a plastic bag without giggling. A thriller shouldn't be so ludicrous that I'm laughing when I shouldn't be laughing.
So Johnny, what do you want to do today? Next up on this list is theme music by T. Marie Vandelli. I cannot express how excited I was for this book. This was in my top 5 anticipated releases of 2019. I never made an actual video for that, but this was one of the 5 books that I was looking forward to the most, and now I would do anything in my power to erase this book from my memory. This book is taking up precious space in my damn mind, and I can never forgive it for that. Not only is the cover absolutely gorgeous, but the synopsis is equally entertaining. 26-year-old Dixie is just 1 year old. Her entire family is slaughtered. I don't know why I was smiling when I said that. I'm so sorry. In this adult psychological thriller, we meet Dixie 25 years later, and the house where her family was murdered in goes up for sale, and she decides to move into it. White people, y'all. Here's what I want to know. Why are black people always dying in horror movies when white people out here acting like this? Literally moving into homes in hopes that they're haunted. Yo, okay, real talk. A light bulb shattered in my apartment and I stayed at a friend's house. Now I know that there's a perfectly logical explanation for that, and it didn't stop me from getting the fuck out of my apartment. Moving on. Again, this thriller did what I absolutely love in thrillers. It was gory, it was unsettling, it was gruesome at times, and I drank it the hell up. I really, really enjoyed the unsettling, the psychological elements. Dixie is definitely an unreliable narrator, and she definitely has mental instability. You see her mental instability throughout the book, and you know that that is guiding her actions. If you're one of those people who enjoys thrillers from the perspective of somebody who is mentally unstable, such as Joe from You by Carolyn Kepnes, I haven't read that book yet, but if you enjoy that, you would probably enjoy this book. I did not. The reason that this book is on this list is because I could not stand that Dixie was allowed to get away with some awful shit. I wanted to see some level of accountability for literally any of her actions. And while I can forgive that to some extent, there's a scene in which she sexually assaults a male character after literally stalking him, and the entire scene is just treated as a joke. It's seen as a quirky part of her character. It's seen as comic relief, and that did not sit well with me. I tried so hard, but I just could not see past it, especially because she suffered 0 repercussions for her actions. And I just feel like if that had been a male character who did that to a female character, y'all would have called the police. This is 911. What's your emergency? Hello? Yes, please hurry. Somebody has been attacked. All right, now I understand that you're upset. Just please try and stay calm. No, you're not listening. You need to come right now. I will send a dispatcher to your location immediately. Tell me when and where this attack took place. It was on page 253 of theme music. Excuse me, are you calling about events that took place in a fictional story? Yes, that's exactly right, and this dirtbag is getting away with it. I hate booktubers. Hello? Operator? Hello? I ended up giving theme music 2 out of 5 stars.
Hi, it's Editing Jessie. I'm sitting here editing this video and enjoying this nice fireplace, and I realized that I totally forgot to mention Queen of the Conquered. That was the next book that came after this one. I've talked about this in my last Black Girl Magic vlog. I gave it like 2 stars. It just wasn't good, but I love Case and Colander with all my heart. But this book wasn't good.
Number 2 on my list of books that wasted my time in 2009. I'm gonna need something stronger. I am not going to talk about these next 2 books without medication. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, comment down below with your guesses. Which 2 books are my top worst books of 2019? The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. But Jessie, What happened to the book jacket?
I tore it off in a fit of rage.
The Goldfinch is a book that takes place in 2008, and it follows a young boy named Theo who lives in New York City with his very beautiful and somewhat aloof mother. Culture and artistry is very, very important to his mother, and so one day they are at a museum. I forget what museum it is, it honestly doesn't matter. A bomb goes off, killing Theo's mother and leaving him having to go through a series of foster homes. Now, I was really excited about this book because of how heavily hyped it was. It won a Pulitzer in 2017, I believe. I think it was 2017. Such high praise for Donna Tartt's writing. So I love books where characters have to kind of go through foster homes. That is pretty much the premise of my favorite book of all time, which is White Oleander by Janet Fitch. At the time that I read this, I went on my Instagram and I laid out in exquisite detail all of my issues with this book. There are screenshots I've highlighted, I have shared why the things that I read in this book upset me to the level that they did. That highlight is still on my Bookstagram. It's still really difficult for me to talk about this book. So if you would like a more cohesive review, go to my Bookstagram and check out that template. It's called Awful Books. I give specific reasons as to why this book was not okay. I'm going to try to be articulate here, but I've been drinking. Oops, this is what happens when you drink and film. Shit, fuck my life. Wait, I'm not ready. Let's talk about the white characters saying the N-word for comic relief. Extremely unnecessary. I need white authors to just leave the N-word alone. Leave it alone. It's not yours to write about. You don't need to depict it in your story in order to show how bad racism is.
Leave it the F alone.
Every person of color was a maid or otherwise in a servile position. They were not only given minimal lines, but the lines that they were given were used as opportunities for these characters to gush about how much they loved their jobs. It was just freaking ridiculous. I can't remember the specific scene because I've tried so hard to blot the details of this book from my mind, but there's a scene in which one of the poor characters of color offers to either come in on their day off for no pay or to do something for no pay in order to help one of the wealthy white characters out. And it was fucking ridiculous. The only time that these people were given any kind of purchase to speak was when they were serving the white characters in some way, shape, or form. Now, the white people who have argued that Donna Tartt wanted to stick to reality is a bullshit racist excuse because Theo carries around a multi-million-dollar historic painting in a fucking pillowcase for most of this book. You expect me to suspend my belief enough to believe that that is an event that could plausibly occur, but it goes too far to imagine that we can have a well-rounded character of color that isn't in a servile position, like there were no people of color who weren't working for white people in 2008. Mind you, in 2008, Obama had just become elected, and there was so much rhetoric. I remember this rhetoric very specifically as a black person because I kept hearing it from white people, that racism was over, that racism was dead, that things are better now because we have a black president. People who read this book thought that it was set in the 50s because of how it depicts people of color. I will repeat that. This book reads like it was set in the 1950s, and that's just not okay. And then there were the people who seriously expect me to believe that Donna Tartt was attempting some type of serious critical commentary about race and doing something truly revolutionary by having white boys say the N-word with no consequence. Zero consequence for their racism, and the racism is never once challenged in the text. Never once challenged through dialogue or through narration. It just is there. And I'm sorry, writing a racist character is not a revolutionary act. You're literally just doing what racist white authors have done to people of color throughout history. I just honestly can't believe that the bar for white people writing about race is so low that this book could win a Pulitzer Prize in 2017. I don't think y'all realize Donna Tartt is rich because of this book. And in case you believe that I'm exaggerating, on page 358, we meet our first black female character who is given a speaking role. And of course, she's the bus driver. Do you hear what I said? She repeated with an aggressive side-to-side head tick. She was as wide as a prize fighter. The name tag atop her impressive bosom read, Denise. You can't have that dog on this bus. Then, impatiently, she made a flapping hand gesture as if to say, get him the hell back in that bag. Now, the words that I emphasized are italicized in the text to show the attitude in them. This is such a racist depiction of a black woman, a caricature of a black woman, the way black women speak and act and behave, and it's racist. It wouldn't have bothered me so much if there had been people of color depicted in the book who weren't caricatures for their race, who weren't servants, who had been given speaking lines that didn't have to do with serving white people. When I tell you I was shaking with anger while reading this book, I truly meant it. The fact that there are so many white people who are willing to read this book and defend it over listening to the people of color who say that we've been hurt and harmed and enraged by this book just proves how prevalent that racism still is in 2020. It shows how racist our society still is and that we really don't care about the concerns of people of color. Don't get me wrong, you can read this book and give it 5 stars and love it and make your favorite book of all time. That is totally fine. But that doesn't mean that this book isn't harmful and racist. If this book were a person, their name would be racist. It's racist. White readers, in 2020, I really need y'all to start paying attention to how people of color are being depicted in your books. I need y'all to start seeing and calling this out instead of just relying on people of color to have to do it for you. I need you to start paying attention. I need you to start analyzing how people of color are being depicted. Are they being given speaking lines? Are they only being reduced to their race? Are they being depicted in a way that is stereotypical? Does the book read like it's set in 1950 when it's supposed to be set in modern time? I need you to stop depending on Own Voices reviews and start critically thinking about the way that people of color are being depicted. I know you're not gonna catch everything, but the racism that was woven throughout this book should have been picked up. It shouldn't have come as a surprise. And if you want more receipts for the racism in this book, go to my Instagram, because I gave many. But I need y'all to really start seeing and paying attention to harmful representation for people of color in your books so that you can protect readers of color. Readers of color don't deserve to have to go through this. I need y'all to start actually being allies and look out for us. And I also need y'all to stand up for us when we say that the contents of a book were harmful to us. I'm not gonna lie, this book made me feel so shitty and so not great about myself. I think a lot of white folks don't realize that when we as people of color read shit like this, it actually does hurt us. A lot of y'all just think that we're being sensitive and that there's no actual repercussions for writing a book with poor representation, but there is. Now it's time for me to talk about my #1 worst book of 2019, the book that wasted my time the most. This glass is too low. I'll be right back. And that book is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Now, I swore in a recent video that I would never talk about this book again. I unfortunately forgot that I had to talk about it again for the purposes of this video. I made an entire dedicated book that wasted my time review to this book. This is a witch hunter love story that is based in, I believe it's 17th century France. Our main character, Lou, is a witch who has left her coven. She's pretty much sworn off of magic and is just trying to survive, but through a series of really unfortunate events, she is forced to marry Reed, who is this very, law-abiding Chaucer citizen who supports the burning of witches, and it's about this hate-to-love relationship between the two of them. If you want to see my full rant review of this book, you gotta watch the dedicated video because, I just don't have the energy to go into detail and talking about all of the ways that this book irritated me. I will say, the world building. Where was it? Who was she? Where did she live? It didn't make sense. One interesting thing about all of this though, because this was such a hyped and beloved book, people were just absolutely raving about it, which is why I picked it up, because I wanted to rave and be excited with it alongside everybody else. I really, really hated that the issues with it were so glaring that I couldn't ignore them. I couldn't move past them in order to enjoy this along with the rest of the reading community. There are just some things I can't move past in my books. I can't move past fat-phobic comments. I can't move past white characters getting full pages of descriptions of their features and what they're wearing, and then black characters getting described as curvy and dark-haired, and that's it. I can't get past black characters being referred to as the Ebony Witch while the white characters get a full-blown description. I can't move past those things. I don't have the privilege of being able to not be bothered by those things in my books. So I'm going to call it out when I see it. And what was interesting about me posting this review was that I saw the other side of BookTube when I did. Hi, welcome to BookTube, where we're all about honest bookish opinions. Whew, oh my gosh, that is such a relief, because let me tell you, there's this hyped book that I really just didn't like. What is your problem, you son of a... One side of BookTube says, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. You're allowed to feel the way that you want to feel. And it was interesting because that same side, once I said like, hey, this book is problematic and harmful, was like,
How dare you not like my favorite book?
and I was like, damn, y'all, weren't you literally just saying that people can like whatever they like and dislike what they don't like? Like, can you just let me live? You can love the book, that's fine. Do you, boo. It's a shitty book, but that doesn't mean you're a shitty person for liking it. The second thing that I found really interesting about how the community responded to my review was so many people were like,
Jessie said the book is racist.
that I found really interesting because my review was like 30 minutes long and I didn't mention race until the end, and my issues with race were paled in comparison to all of my other issues with the book. And it's just really interesting how like when a Black person critiques something about race, white people kind of blow it up and make it bigger than it actually is. It's almost like some people can't handle Black folks calling out racism. There's one thing I can say for this book, and that is,
This is the book that convinced me that white people don't need to have people of color in their stories. Look, if this is how you are going to depict people of color, just leave us the fuck out of it, okay? Write your all-white cast. That's fine. I'll still read the book. I will read your all-white cast book and I will enjoy it. I would probably enjoy it more than if you try and write characters you know that you can't write with any level of empathy. If you know that you are incapable of writing a well-rounded person who happens to be brown, don't put a brown person in the book. Look, like, I will just get my brown representation from brown authors at this point. If we are going to keep the bar this low for white authors writing about race, then I'm not going to be criticizing white people for not having people of color in their books anymore. You will never hear me say the words again, oh, this book was good, but I wish the author had included characters of color. Because I've seen what happens when certain authors include characters of color, and I'm fucking good. As I've said before, this is the last time I will talk about Serpent and Dove. If you want to watch that rave video, go for it. If you want to comment down below your opinion on the book and argue with me about why it wasn't problematic, go for it. I'm not going to respond and I'm not going to read your comment because for my own self-care, for my own healing, I need to put this book past me because it was harmful for me to read. Whether you want to acknowledge the fact that I was harmed by it or not is your business, but I'm putting myself first. So yeah, this is the last time you will ever hear me say the words Serpent and Dove on Bowtiesandbooks. That is it for this video. Yo, that chamomile tea did not help me. Thank you for watching another Bowties and Books production. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would absolutely love it if you become a part of my dapper family. All of my social media links are going to be in the description box below, and I can't wait to see you in my next one.